Hey kiddies, it's Triple Feature Tuesday once again, and this week we're looking at bittersweet Irish movies. That's right, this week we're going to look at three movies that are either set in Ireland or predominantly feature Irishmen as our main characters as they try to make their way through life and, deal with all the random people and events that occur therein. It's been kind of cloudy this week, and with Lucius passing on, it's felt like a sad song kind of week. And these movies are like sort of sad songs, but there is at minimum a kernel, if not a lot, of hope in all of them. And we're going to be going in increasing order of hope and happiness. So our menu is going to include Calvary, In Bruges, and Breakfast on Pluto. Calvary, written and directed by John Michael McDonagh. This is his second big movie with Brendan Gleeson. Brendan Gleeson is going to be in all of these movies to varying degrees. It's actually a little unfortunate because we're going in order of decreasing amounts of Brendan Gleeson. By the time we get to the last one, he'll live through the movie, so there is that. Brendan Gleeson plays priest Father James, who is basically the parish priest in this county in Ireland, and we watch him over the course of a week try to be the parish priest to a town of not necessarily unruly, and not necessarily quirky, but just average people in Ireland. The real twist of the movie is the film opens with him in confession and one of his parishioners admitting that he was abused by priests as a child, and now he is going to kill Father James because he considers Father James a good priest and thinks that that'll make more of an effect on the world at large. While Father James is going through all of these events and little episodes during this week, there is that looming over his head, and I'm not going to spoil what happens. Brendan Gleeson is actually through most of all three of these movies, our main character is going to be our focal point for pretty much everything. I think in Bruges they sort of trade off between the two main characters, but predominantly you follow one main character in every single scene. This time around, it's Brendan Gleeson's Father James. And Brendan Gleeson, just always great. I mean, he's brilliant. Ever since Braveheart, he's just always, he comes in and he plays whatever role he plays, like rough guys, tough guys, soft guys, evil guys. This one, he's just playing like an borderline unrealistically nice guy, but Father James has more than his fair share of quirks and bad habits, as you see through the course of the movie. And oddly enough, I never thought I'd ever say this phrase in reference to any movie, but man, Brendan Gleeson looks good in this movie. I mean, he just looks gorgeous, just very majestic throughout the whole thing. Rounding out the cast, we got Kelly Riley playing his daughter from before he was a priest, and she's having her problems. Aidan Gillen with his actual Irish real voice, still very, very gruff and hoarse, which I wonder what happened. Like somewhere in between The Wire and Game of Thrones, everything got scratchy and scary. And I thought he was just putting something on for Game of Thrones, but no, this is just how he talks now. Emmett Walsh is playing an expatriated American writer, which is lovely because you don't see Emmett Walsh playing nice people that often, so that was sort of charming. Christopher O'Dowd, he's kind of a up-and-comer guy, but he is progressively getting more interesting every time I see him in a movie. Donald Gleeson, Brendan Gleeson's son, has a little, sort of, not necessarily cameo, but like a little bit part as a really, really creepy convicted murderer. And finally, we have the wonderful Dylan Moran, the stand-up comedian, probably still most famous for being David the Jerk in Shaun of the Dead. And he is playing basically the exact opposite of his stand-up comedian persona, a very posh, evil, rich man. And it's very impressive to see him do it because he's just not this character. But it's really lovely. McDonagh makes great use of Ireland as a backdrop. Every shot is just really stunning. And regardless of how the movie ends, You get the feeling that people are going to be all right for the most part, even though that's what I love about all three of these movies. There's a feeling that people are going to be all right, even though everything is not fixed by the end of the film through the actions of the characters. And there's kind of is what it is to be, alive and Irish, really. Next up, we have In Bruges by Martin McDonagh, John Michael McDonagh's brother, featuring Brendan Gleeson again and Colin Farrell as Irish hitmen who have been ordered to lie low after a botched job in Bruges. It's definitely less slice of lifey than Calvary is. It kind of becomes sort of a weird Irish version of Waiting for Godot at different points because our two main characters, Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, are debating a lot of heavy issues in terms of spirituality, morality, ethics, because, they're hitmen. It's really, really funny throughout the whole thing. Colin Farrell, well, I'm not going to say he's great in everything, is really good in this movie. He has a very charming doofishness about him. Brendan Gleeson is the more sedate, sensible member of the odd couple, and again, he's just wonderful. The McDonagh brothers know how to pick locations for their movies, as evidenced by Calvary and In Bruges, in terms of just using scenery to help set the mood and establish, a visual tone. It's just really lovely. I almost want to visit Bruges, except I sort of don't want to go to Bruges. It's funny to listen to Colin Farrell's character rail against the place the entire time when it just seems like a nice place to visit. I mean, it seems like you'd be living in Disney World, but visiting would be nice. Coming in our third act is Ralph Fiennes nearly stealing the whole movie as a mobster Harry Waters, the guy that Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson work for, and he's just really funny and over the top and ridiculous. It's a borderline Ben Kingsley and Sexy Beast-ish role. Harry Waters is not nearly as scary as Don Logan, because I'm pretty sure Don Logan will come back from the dead at some point. But he does a pretty good job. I mean, if nothing else, it gave me the great cut down you're an inanimate effing object, which I just love that so much. And if you're interested, go onto YouTube and you can actually find a deleted scene from the movie, which features Harry and Brendan Gleeson's character when they were younger, and Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor, plays Harry. And it's kind of neat seeing Matt Smith do a Ralph Fiennes impression, and the characters, the performances and the voice sort of match up, which is interesting. Definitely more bitter than sweet, even though there's a lot of humor in the movie. But it definitely, of the three, this movie has the darkest ending, which I'm not going to spoil because it's on Netflix. You really should watch it. It's just charming as hell and really, really funny. Finally, we have Neil Jordan's adaptation of Patrick McCabe's Breakfast on Pluto, which pretty sure is just one of my favorite movies ever. They had previously worked together on The Butcher Boy, which is a fascinatingly scary movie. Breakfast on Pluto is the tale of Patrick Kitten Braden, played by the perfectly androgynous Cillian Murphy. He has very delicate features, but until you actually see him play a transvestite throughout an entire movie, you don't really notice. He passes for a woman very, very well. He's very pretty as a woman and very handsome as a man, which, how does that even work? Left on the doorstep of Father Liam, played by Liam Neeson, he is taken in for foster care with the Braden family. Patrick, they never go into detail as to what exactly he should be labeled as in terms of GLBT stuff. He is a very feminine man and prefers to dress and act like a woman. This, of course, causes all sorts of problems in a fairly idyllic Irish small town. He has a group of lovely little misfit friends that he gets along with. But what's driving him is he wants to find his mother and at least meet her. And so he goes on a journey throughout Ireland and then into London. And over the course of the film and his journey, he meets all sorts of different characters, such as Gavin Friday playing Billy Hatchet, Native American themed glam rock singer, and his band is Billy Hatchet and the Tomahawks. He meets Brian Ferry, who is a fairly nefarious John one night. He meets Stephen Ray, because what is a Neil Jordan movie without Stephen Ray? As a magician, the amazing Bertie. And throughout the whole thing, and no matter how dark everything gets, and the movie gets really dark because it takes place throughout the late 60s and 70s. So not the happiest time to be Irish in Ireland or in London. But Kitten never lets anything get him down for more than a little while, and he just is always moving forward and trying to make everything work out. And it's just wonderful. It is. I get so happy just watching that movie. If you're having a bad day, Breakfast on Pluto will cheer you up. And Cillian Murphy is just incredible as Kitten throughout the whole thing. Just you watch him and you forget pretty much any other movie he's ever done, because he just is Kitten throughout the whole thing. And it's just very positive and very lovely, even though, not everything is resolved at the end of the movie again, but there is hope for everybody. And that's, I think there is more than enough sad and depressing Irish films and literature. I think the good ones have that hope in it, because, things can always get better even though things look bleak right now. So if you're having a bad day, this is a good triple feature to cheer you up. Calvary, In Bruges, and Breakfast on Pluto. And I'll see you guys next week.